Well, good afternoon. This is the Thunder Creek Trail in the North Cascades National Park. It's about 5:15 in the afternoon. This trail is an easy 3.5 mile out and back hike, and it's just out of the Colonial Creek Campground, which is just along Highway 20 in the North Cascades National Park. I was traveling through on my way back from Winthrop and had an opportunity to stop here. The plan is to capture some sunset images, hopefully. There are some mixed clouds in the sky, but there is a composition, a few from the top of the knob, one of them looking at Lake Diablo, and so with any luck I can capture something when I get up to the top, and we'll take a look and see how it, or take a peek and see how things look. So Thunder Knob, a relatively short and easy out and back hike, only about 500 feet of elevation gain. Be a great place to bring a family, kids, whatever, but the end result should offer some commanding views of Diablo Lake and the surrounding area. So with any luck, there'll be some sunset color, and if not color, then at least some sunset light. Well, there's some pretty nice views there. It's Labor Day weekend, September the 1st in the US, and while it's not officially fall, we're starting to see a little bit of transition. There are a few leaves that are starting to change, but the Cascades, or Washington State in general, being an evergreen state, you don't think a lot of fall color, but things that do stand out are the larch trees in the central and northern Cascades turn this fire bright yellow and are just absolutely gorgeous in the fall. And the other thing is we have many meadows that are covered with heather and huckleberry bushes, and they turn a deep purplish kind of violet color, and just absolutely gorgeous in the fall, contrasted with the granite and the rocks, depending on where you are, of course. But so I'm about a mile in, and if my map reading is correct, we got about another half a mile or so to go, but I'm going to loop up here around a small little pond and should reach the knob in plenty of time for sunset. Sunset is at 7:48 and it's now just before 6 o'clock, so got plenty of time. I actually brought my dinner with me, so get up there, look around, scout some compositions, cross my fingers for some light, make some dinner, and have a good sunset. Let's go. A little bit of wind off and on up on the top of the knob, but this is looking to the west into the sun, and I'm sorry for the exposure, but some storm clouds off to the west, and then a mix of clouds to the south, but difficulty finding a composition that way. There are a few people around, so I'm going to have plenty of time, so I'm going to take a few minutes, scout around, see what compositions I can find, and hopefully come away with something interesting. I'm playing around with a little shadow detail here. I have the 70 to 200 still on, and I'm all the way in at 200 millimeters looking to the northwest, at the valley to the east of Thornton Peak, and the valley is completely in shade, but there's some excellent shadow detail with the glacier, the rock formations, and then I do like the layering of the composition. One thing that does concern me is I don't know if the amount of layering and the fact that basically the lower 2/3 of the frame are in shadow, if that's going to be a distraction. I do have my 3-stop soft edge ND filter in because the clouds above the peaks in the distance are catching quite a bit of evening color, and so that allows me to expose correctly for the mid-ground and well, there really isn't any foreground. For the mid-ground that is in shadow. So I'm taking a series of shots here. The fact that I'm at 200 millimeters and not using a remote trigger, I did switch to a 10-second delay, and it's a little windy right now, and so I did bump my ISO to 200 just to allow me to keep my shutter speed down, especially at that long focal length. I don't want to have any risk of blurring. So we'll see how this turns out, and I think I'll be happier when I get back home and look at it on the computer. But I do like the light on the peaks in the distance. I do like the layering, and we'll see how we can pull out that shadow detail and maybe make this an interesting composition. Well, I've found quite a few compositions. This one is looking due south, and I'm not sure the mountain that I'm looking at, the backside of Sahali maybe. I'll put it in the video. I don't have my Peak Finder app with me because I messed up and left my phone in the car, but that's okay. I'll put it in the video. But I have Diablo Lake just below. It's not included in the composition, but the valley up to the peak forms a perfect V and frames the glaciers and the mountain in the background. There's a little bit of cloud and atmosphere above the peak that helps, I think, to add some interest. It's also now 7:24, so we're about 20 minutes before official sunset. So it's at prime time for an alpine environment to really catch that indirect light coming in from the west at sunset. The other thing that this prime time is because in an alpine environment, especially shooting glaciers, you get that great contrast between the deep blacks of the rock and the bright white glacial snow or glacial ice. And right now, it's picking up that kind of yellowish sunset hue. So it makes for a great composition. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I've already taken this. I shot it at f9, underexposing just a touch, but I'm pretty happy with it. And I'm going to finish by going back to my original composition, looking over to the east, but I don't know if you can see in this video, but the clouds have moved in above the peak, and that might be a distraction, especially if the clouds fill in all of the upper third of the image. So I'm going to go back and take a look, and I also still need to eat my dinner. Well, the light's about as good as it's going to get right now. Some soft light coming in from the west that's illuminating the west side of the peak. There is a bank of clouds that transects, goes completely across the top of the frame, and then a small cloud at the top of the mountain. Now that's a lot more powerful than what I was worried about of it being a complete cloud bank, basically from the top of the image down to the top of the peak. But the way it is now with the break in the clouds, it makes a much more powerful image, and it helps to frame everything and fill in the upper right and upper left corners. But I'm going to finish up and go ahead and take this. Also shooting this at f9, ISO 100, and underexposing just a touch. I still have my 3-stop hard edge ND filter, and that's helping me expose for the soft light on the west side of the peak. The wind's picked up a little bit. Still need to have my dinner. So I think as far as the photography, I'm going to wrap it up. Well, I guess that's going to do it from Thunder Knob in North Cascades National Park. Got the headlamp on. I'll probably have a little bit of walking out in the dark this evening. But yeah, the intention of today's video is really just to reinforce that you don't need a multi-day expedition every time to really get some awesome experiences in backcountry and wilderness photography. This is really just a 3.2 mile loop hike, but had some exposure of some wonderful alpine scenes, looking at the glaciers to the south. Wonderful views of Lake Diablo below. Just a great afternoon and great evening for a hike, and also to break out the camera and capture some images. So hope you enjoyed coming along. If you do, I always appreciate a thumbs up. And if you want to continue to get updates from me as I continue to develop as a landscape photographer, well, consider hitting that subscribe button. And until next time, I will see you in the next video.